So what is a heat exchanger? Heat exchanger is defined as an equipment which transfers the energy from a hot fluid to cold fluid with the maximum rate and minimum investment and running cost. Okay, the heat is transferred from a hot fluid to cold fluid. Energy transfer will take place from the hot fluid to cold fluid. Is the energy transfer take place? So the temperature of the hot fluid, cold fluid, and the wall dividing both hot fluid and cold fluid changes, because the hot fluid would, suppose it has a temperature of 210 degrees Celsius, it will decrease to some value, and similarly for a cold fluid it increases to some value due to the heat gain from the hot fluid, as well as the wall dividing the hot fluid and cold fluid also changes. So these are the basic thing that happens inside a heat exchanger. And some of the examples of heat exchanger: intercooler, preheater, condensers and boilers in steam power plant, and condensers and evaporators in refrigeration unit, regenerators, automobile radiators, the one used in vehicles, then milk chillers, oil cooler, etc. Okay, this is what is a heat exchanger and examples of heat exchanger. Types of heat exchanger. To find the not to now discuss not to meet the widely varying applications, several types of heat exchanger we have done. First one is a classification: nature of heat exchanging process. Okay, how does the heat get transferred? Okay, that's the first classification, basic heading. The nature of heat exchange process. Among that, the first one is direct contact heat exchanger. So direct contact heat exchanger or open heat exchanger. Okay, what is direct contact or open heat exchanger? So in direct contact heat exchanger, the heat transfer takes place with direct mixing of hot and cold fluid. Okay, there is a direct contact, physical contact of fluid of both hot fluid and the cold fluid. Okay, so what happens is there is a transfer of heat and mass take place. Transfer of mass take place is because it is coming direct in physical contact. So there is a transfer with the mass and heat take place between both the fluid. So use of such units is made under condition where the mixing of the two fluid is either harmless or desirable. Like, so that mixing to not to mix two fluid, it has to be harmless, or there should not be any other reactions to directly mix physically both the fluid, hot fluid and cold fluid. Some of the example of direct contact heat exchangers are jet condensers and cooling towers and direct contact feed heaters. So that given figure is a schematic, that figure of how does a direct contact heat exchanger work. There is a hot water, cold water, there is a hot fluid and cold fluid. So the hot fluid is and the cold fluid both are moving inside the container. So the temperature of both hot fluid and cold fluid changes, right? The hot fluid temperature decreases due to the gain the transfer of heat from hot fluid to cold fluid, while the cold fluid temperature increases due to the gaining heat from the hot water. That's simply what is direct contact heat exchanger. The only thing you have to keep in mind is this direct contact. So regenerator comes under indirect contact heat exchanger. In this type of heat exchanger, the heat transfer between two fluids to carry out but the transmission takes place through a wall. There is a separation substance as a wall. On the other case, direct contact, there is a direct mixing of hot fluid and cold fluid. Here it is there is a wall or some sort of membrane which separates the two fluid. The major type of indirect contact heat exchanger are regenerator and recuperator. So what is a regenerator? Regenerator, the working is same as that of previous one. Here the heat exchanger, the hot fluid and cold fluid pass alternately through a space containing solid particle. Okay, there is a space in the middle, and this space contains solid particles, some sort of matrix. Okay, and these provide alternately sink and source of heat flow. This layer acts as a medium between the hot fluid and cold fluid in case of a regenerator. Some of the examples are IC engine, gas turbine, open hearth and glass melting furnaces, etc. This is all about regenerator. Next is recuperator. Recuperator is also important type of heat exchanger. So the important point is the fluid exchange heat is done on either side of the dividing wall. We know for indirect contact there is a dividing wall, but in the case of recuperator, unlike regenerator, the heat transfer takes on both side. Okay, either the heat on either side of the dividing wall. So it can be in the form like it could be pipe or tube, that inside space and outside. So heat fluid exchange heat can are on the either side of the dividing wall. Example, automobile radiator, oil coolers, intercooler, etc. So these are the uh, basically the two categories. The first one on the basis of the main heading is on the basis of nature of heat exchange process. First one is direct contact. Okay, on the basis of nature of heat exchange or direct contact heat exchangers and indirect contact heat exchanger. This is all about the nature of heat exchange process, the very first classification. And next classification it will be relative direction of fluid motion.